think in your process, think in the problems that it may create you when you scale it up, and have solutions for this. And this will give you a peaceful and pleasant industrial life. This is the essential. I know it's difficult because the timelines are always very constrained, and the time to market and the investors are impatient. When are you going to give us this? But you can dedicate as much time as possible, as much resources as possible to think and design and evaluate your risk. Your life will be easier and your success will be greater.
Hey, smart biotech scientists. Welcome back. We are in the middle of a conversation about biotech factory design and scale up. And if you haven't listened to part 1 of our conversation yet, please go back, because today we are continuing with Alfredo Martínez Mogarra, who is a bioprocess engineer with 30 plus years of experience in the industry in several countries in Spain, in Europe, and the USA, including Amgen, Serono, and Genzyme. And he has participated in the design, construction, and startup of several factories in different countries. Are you juggling the complexities of CMC development while trying to enjoy the beauty of biotech? Have you ever wondered if there's a way to simplify bioprocessing? Welcome to the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast, where we're diving headfirst into the very challenges you face. We're breaking it down, demystifying the jargon, and giving you the keys to unlock your full potential. I'm your host, David Brohlman, and I get it. With 15 plus years in the biotech industry, I face the same challenges you do. There's a way to simplify and streamline so you can remove complexity, you can skip trials and errors, deliver without delay your groundbreaking therapy to clinics and market, and still enjoy every single step. Do you want to learn how industry experts and I did it? Grab a cup of coffee and your favorite notebook and pen. Now is the time to take your bioprocessing game to the next level. Let's smarten up biotech. Now let's shift gear a bit, Alfredo, and let's talk about the different people that are involved, because you mentioned the word teamwork, and there are a lot of people involved while building the facility, while developing your process, while scaling it up. And then once it's running at the industrial scale, you have to manage your operation. So my question is, what are the key players involved, and how do you foster a collaboration culture, and how do you manage effectively all these very diverse stakeholders?
Well, this is a good point. So in your facility, first thing you need to create are systems of work. So you need to, point here is separate the things, the thoughts, and the actions. You have people dedicated to the action, and they have to be concentrated in the action and have to be disturbed the minimum possible. This means that outside of this, you need to have teams and you have a fluent communication. You need to have fluent communication between manufacturing and quality. This is essential. So there used to be some companies where there was some rivalry because we have problems with these guys of quality, or the other way around. These people in manufacturing are not doing what we tell them to do. This is a huge mistake I have seen in some organizations. One cannot exist without the other. So they need to discuss, they need to share results and make decisions on top. You need to have your engineers. Normally there's an operations team, and this operations team is going to put together everybody in the manufacturing, the quality, the supply chain, and the engineering. The engineering is the basic because they are going to be taking care of the material, of the equipment. They are going to be dedicated to the calibration. This needs to create integrated manufacturing plans. And basically, you need to have everybody finding each other and then sharing all the information and deciding together the actions that are appropriate for the facility.
And what should we consider when we are choosing the suppliers and the equipment? Are there any critical aspects we should look out for?
Absolutely. So when you ask me the questions, memories come to me and I laugh because I've seen these things. So for material, first of all, you need to establish very well which are your specifications for your materials. and your user request for equipment. This is essential, and you need to think on that and have a clear idea of what you need. It's quite common that because of the hurry, you stamp the specification of the manufacturer of one of your supplies. And this is horrible because once you put this in your procedures, you need to comply with this. And I'm sure that if you take sodium chloride for your manufacturing, your limitations about sodium chloride probably do not include a trace of magnesium below 1 part per million. You don't care this. However, if you put it, you have to demonstrate that you have this. So you need to establish your request properly and adequately to your real needs, not whatever the manufacturer has done. This is number one. The equipment is exactly the same. You need to establish the user request that you really need for your process and that you know that have impact on your product. Having said this, there is also the mistake of falling in which is the one delivering cheapest or faster. Or no, it's better that you go to companies which are reliable. Even if they are more expensive, it's very important that you consider for the equipment that you have a good coverage by maintenance services. This is essential. And be careful because excellent companies, international companies, can be very good in some countries and not that good in some others. And you need to talk with locals and have the experience. And this happens. I have lived this. Companies which were very good in Spain were not so good in Belgium, and things in this side. You need to have certain support. Better see experience in the people who are offering you the equipment. Things have a cost. So if someone comes to you with something really economic, be careful because this economy has to be responding to something. And for the supplies, it's more or less the same. So you need people who are in the situation of producing for GMP. If you produce GMP, probably this is the case. You need to have transparency from your suppliers. You need to know about their economic robustness, because if they disappear from one day to other, don't try to look for common things. Don't look for additives which are exclusive of a secret formula but are fabulous because they cells produce 3 times. Maybe this happens, but you may regret because they fail with the supply, no? And you don't know what's inside. And always look for more than one supplier of your critical materials to make sure that it's not going to fail.
Let's look at the operations now in the routine manufacturing, because we have successfully designed our facility. We have managed to scale our process up into the industrial facility. It's robust. It's working well. We have selected the right equipment. We have the right partners, the suppliers. And having worked myself both in process development, technology transfer and scale up, and manufacturing, I know these worlds are quite different. So what are the main challenges in the industrial manufacturing? Can you tell us a bit what we are facing there?
Sure. So it's the predictability. This is essential. Well, something very nice that I told once is the difference between doing beer and doing wine, making wine is similar or equivalent to the difference between making development and making production. When you make a good beer, you have to close it and do always the same, exactly the same, because this is exactly what you want. When you make a wine, you can invent whatever to make something better, because this is your purpose, doing something better. So in production, in manufacturing, we are making beer. And to be constant and to be stable, the key is in the control. So you need to evaluate your different process steps. You need to identify your critical manufacturing indicators. You need to create control graphs and have a very close follow-up of all these things, because this is going to tell you when something is going to be wrong before it happens. And you need to pay attention to that. You need to make continuous investigations of these trends or these things in anything. And it's typical that you see drift in some parameter in a pH of solution that you produce every day. Okay, there's a drift in the pH of this production. What's happening? Can be, well, this is perfect. It's within the control limits. Yeah, this is within the control limits, but it's showing a drift. Investigate, because perhaps you have an electrode which is not working well. It's so simple than this. And if you make this investigation when you have this warning, things are going to be much better than when you have the problem. You don't need to stop anything, and you can have preventive measures. So the key is in the control, in the verification of the process, how is it going, and what's the response of their equipment. to see things coming before they happen. Sometimes you fail anyway, but it's one way to have it under control. Then you need to have an MSAT group, which is going to be checking if things can be improved, if something can be changed to get a better output. This is important as well, to have a better output of your functionality.
Yeah, controlling your process is key. And what can help us control is automation and digitalization. So now the question I have, Alfredo, is when and where should we start automating and digitalization?
I believe all these things have to be started at the beginning of the process, even if you don't implement immediately. There are two key elements in the facility. One is the ERP, so system which is going to control your materials, your expenses, the amount of material that you use, when you use it, what's the situation of your warehouse. This is essential. It's something that you need to start with as soon as possible and before things become too complicated to move to these kind of systems. The other thing that you need to implement from the very beginning is the process control, the SCADA or something of this kind, where you can connect your equipment and know what's the general status of the facility. And these are the two basic pillars. On top of this, there are a number of things that you can digitalize, which is the typical systems to control the quality control, the documents, even the electronic batch records, which are something fantastic. At some point you can implement. It's not terrible urgency, but it's something very good to have. So the less paper you have and more you automate things. There are systems right now that technicians just go with iPad or something and take photo, the control of the QR code or something like this, and automatically connect with the ERPs and check if the material is okay, if this is approved by QC. So there's something fantastic. Maybe you don't need this from the beginning because it's a lot of money which is involved in that, but it's something that is nice to have. Then there is the automation. So it's important to have a clear idea of what you want to automate. Normally, you want to automate things which are heavy and are repetitive tasks. This is the most interesting. But to make sure that the automation is a good one, because sometimes we force the automation of things, and at the end of the day, it's more work than do them manually. So it's something to be taken in consideration. To evaluate without prejudices. The usual prejudice is that the automation is better than the human hands. Happens most of the time, but may happen the other way around. So you need to give an opportunity to these things and think it very well, because it can take you to an adequate situation. The other thing which is very interesting now in the field of automation and with the artificial intelligence, now we heard the artificial intelligence continuously. It's like the one who is not incorporating the artificial intelligence is stupid. Artificial intelligence is just landing and is still waiting for a place. In the bioprocess, in my view, the very interesting thing of the artificial intelligence is that you can feed it with a lot of data and it can establish correlations that normally have been out of our control. So to give an example, when you're studying your process and identifying critical quality attributes or control parameters, these kind of things, you normally have a few things which are those that you can control. Very seldom that you have critical material quality attributes that you can control or even manage. And this is something which escapes to our possibilities of control. The artificial intelligence is capable, if it's fed with all this information, of establishing correlations which are incredible to suspect. Now, the quality of a plastic or the origin of a raw material with the outputs of something of your critical quality attributes is something that may happen. And this is also good, or I expect it's good, and I'm working these days on this, to create models of bioreactors, models of processes, because, well, the bioreactor modeling I work with was basically based on mass transfer equations that at the end of the day you can adapt. Just increase your potency in the equation, your polynomial is a higher degree, and then things adapt. The maths adapt to the process and not the other way around. These things are establishing relations on an experimental base, not necessarily experiments done in purpose, but it takes the information that you have for your process, the inputs, the outputs, and establish relationships. And then you can use all this information to simulate things and to have an idea of what's your reactor going to do if you change certain parameters. So it's very fascinating field, and it's something that has a future, I believe, something which will come, hopefully soon.
Yeah, technology is great. Automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning. If we're using it right, do you see any potential pitfalls?
Well, always in this shaken world where we are, anything may change at any moment. So if you look at the concentrations of certain supplies, we need microchips like breathing. Even if we don't realize this. So it's only when there's a political problem between China and Taiwan that we feel that, no, and we are scared and somebody makes the prediction of what can happen. We need to switch off the lights and go back to the caves. So this kind of concentration and these geopolitical problems that we have, unfortunately, here and there, this can provide these kind of problems. For the rest of the technology, I believe it's moving forward. It's something belonging to the field of science. And I believe scientists are generous and do not hide things. I think the potential pitfalls are more coming from this kind of situations.
So what I'm hearing, Alfredo, is the potential pitfalls are more due to supply chain issues, something we have seen, for instance, during the pandemic, where all of the sudden supply chains were disrupted. So to become too dependent on certain technologies or certain equipments/materials.
Yeah, exactly. To me, this is the main freedom that we have right now. Other things, I don't see that we're going to have a lack of technology or something which is not going to work or it's going to create. No, this is basically my concern. The other thing is where the money is going. Because the money is not looking for any other than its reproduction. It's like an alive being, no? It's looking to reproduce. And depends on where is the opportunity of making money. Biotech has always been and will be always a high-risk business. So there are some companies and some institutions which have made a lot of money in biotech, but we don't hear about how many have failed or have consumed number of dollars or euros and have never do nothing. And this is happening. So it's high risk for the companies, for the money, and for the people who are working on it. In biotech, you have to be ready for these kind of things because it happens.
We have covered a lot of ground today, Alfredo. What is your 20-second takeaway from our conversation?
What I really like from these things is the idea that you need to think very well before starting doing things. So think in your process, think in the problems that it may create you when you scale it up, and have solutions for this. And this will give you a peaceful and pleasant industrial life. This is the essential. I know it's difficult because the timelines are always very constrained, and the time to market and the investors are impatient. When are you going to give us this? But this will, if you can dedicate as much time as possible, as much resources as possible to think and design and evaluate your risk, your life will be easier and your success will be greater. This is the basic message, I would say.
Alfredo, where can people connect with you?
Well, I'm in LinkedIn, Alfredo Martínez Mogarra, easy to find. Also in the Biotech Academy in Rome, the webpage, I'm there. I have a honorific position there. I'm not an employee, but it's part of my life, and the two main places where you can find me.
Excellent, Alfredo. I will leave all the information in the show notes. So smart biotech scientists, please sure to reach out to Alfredo and check out the amazing author of the Biotech Academy in Rome. They have a lot of courses, a lot of resources. So hop over to that website as well. And Alfredo, thank you very much for sharing all the insights, your expertise, your experience over the last 3 to 4 decades in the biotech industry. And it was a huge pleasure having you on the show today.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you very much for inviting me and for hosting me.
Hey, smart biotech scientists. Thank you very much for tuning in today. What did you think about today's conversation? Please let us know by leaving a review. And perhaps you're not so sure about the right steps to take in your facility design or process development or scale up. I want to help you. And to get you started on the right foot, I offer you a free 30-minute assessment. Just use the link down in the show notes and I'll see you on the call. All right, smart scientists. That's all for today on the Smart Biotech Scientist podcast. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on your journey to bioprocess mastery. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, we can empower more scientists like you. For additional bioprocessing tips, visit us at smartbiotechscientist.com. Stay tuned for more inspiring biotech insights in our next episode. Until then, let's continue to smarten up biotech.